the one and only, the Fire Leadership Coach, your host of the Powerhouse Leader Show, Chavon Anette.
I am super excited to introduce another amazing guest. It's amazing that God put it together like this. Dr. Frances Ann Bailey, we reconnected at a summit for authors where I was supporting my amazing sister who's in the audience. Shout out to Kiani Bryan. And while I was there was also this woman that was another speaker with Kiani Bryan, and that was Cynthia Williams-Bey. And I had no idea that we would reconnect later on. And so when I tell you this woman of God is amazing, she is truly amazing. And she is a leader doing great things. So you're about to hear from someone who is doing exceptional work once again. So without any further ado, I bring up the lovely Cynthia, Prophetess, Cynthia Williams-Bey. So we are so excited. So, Prophetess Cynthia Williams-Bey, can you tell us a little bit more about who you are?
Okay, first I gotta be a little ghetto.
Okay.
Hi, my babies.
I love it. I love it.
Yes, they're in the audience supporting their mama.
I love it. I love it.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I am so honored to be here.
Yes.
This is amazing. This is amazing.
It's my honor, too. You are doing great, great things. So tell everyone some of the things that you do, both definitely in the marketplace, but also in ministry as well.
Yeah, so I am Prophetess Cynthia Williams-Bey. They call me the Destiny Pusher because I'm going to push you past your fears, push you past those obstacles because God has more for you, right?
Amen.
Yes, but I am the CEO and the founder of Heaven Sent Childcare based out of Richmond, Virginia. We're the only licensed award-winning childcare center that provides childcare from 6 a.m. to 12 midnight. And I am also the CEO and the producer and radio show host of the Williams-Bey radio show.
Woo!
Yes.
I love it. I love it. So the first question I want to ask you, Prophetess Cynthia, is about what made you decide to start this amazing, and I'm sure still growing because the vision never stops.
Yes.
What made you start this this program to be able to provide support for children while their family maybe is at work and things of that nature?
Yeah, so I am a native New Yorker, born and raised in Bedford-Stuyvesant, Brooklyn.
New York is in the
building. Yes. And after I lost my mom to pancreatic cancer in 1999, I found myself as a young woman trying to find myself, trying to find love in all the wrong places. And I ended up here in Virginia. Yeah. And when I say I had a true Abraham moment, I did. I left everything. I left everything familiar. I left everything stable. And I found myself here in Virginia. And I was working in corporate America. And at that time, I became a single mother. And we all know when you're working in corporate America, it is not very, conducive to being a parent or being a single mom at that. And I could not find any type of support or childcare after 6 p.m. Yeah. And then also on a single mom salary, I could not afford the prices at an actual facility. So, at that time, I didn't really have support from my son's dad. By the way, he's an amazing dad now, right? God restored that thing. He's an amazing dad. However, I, went around the bank I was working at just asking the other women and stuff like that if they were experiencing the same issues, and they were. And when I say I ended up finding someone in a home, but it just seems like every time that I came to pick up my son, he was in a car seat in a full snowsuit, as an infant, as if she was waiting for me to get there. And what ended up happening is my son ended up in a hospital with RSV because her husband was smoking around the children. It was really bad. And I was on a final warning because I was having complications throughout the pregnancy, and I actually thought I was going to miscarry, but God, covered my baby. And in that experience, I had to make a choice. It was either my career or my son.
Wow.
And I chose my son.
Yes.
And I literally sat at my cubicle crying out to God, like, what am I going to do? I'm on a final warning. I have to nurse my son back. And God whispered in my ear, heaven sent. Wow. It was so audible. Wow. I thought it was one of my coworkers. I stood up and I said, did you say something to me?
Wow.
Yes, it was so audible.
Wow.
Yes. And by the time I left work that day, I started asking more questions. By the time I left without any type of degree, because when my mom passed away, I dropped out of college.
Wow.
I dropped out of college. So without a college degree, without any type of business background, God downloaded a full actual business plan. Wow. And by the time I left work that day, I knew who my audience was going to be. I knew my prices. I knew my hours. And I knew when I was going to start.
Wow.
Yes.
That is amazing.
Yes.
Oh, my goodness.
Yes.
Let's give her a haircut
Yes.
again. Sometimes we find ourselves in these positions where we have to make tough decisions.
Yes.
And some of those decisions will make us cry because we're afraid, but at the same time, we hear God so clearly.
Yes.
And so by the end of that day, you knew exactly the next course of action.
Yes.
And so that should encourage someone, because if you got the first instructions, trust him to give you the next set.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. That's amazing. And so now you found yourself going all the way till midnight. Was that always from the beginning, or was that something you decided later on?
Yeah, so in the house, actually, this was before I got married. I was single at that time, but I was doing 24 hours.
Wow.
I did 24 hours. And check this out, guys. I did it as a single mom out of a one-bedroom apartment.
Wow.
And my first 5 children were all clients of that bank that I worked for.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
24 hours I was doing.
It's so beautiful. I know Bishop T.D. Jakes may not have been the first person to say this, but he's the first person I heard it from.
Yes.
But he says that we are solutions to problems.
Yes.
And you identified a problem, and God gave you the solution for it.
Yes.
And you became that solution and continuing with it. Now, my question then becomes, how did you maintain your position? Because although we hear from the beginning to the end, we know there's a journey in between.
Ooh, yes,
how
it is.
How did you maintain your position when challenges arise?
Wow, just remembering who called you and the purpose, right? And then also, when I transitioned from the home to a center, it's totally different, right? Because now it's not just yourself, but now you're trying to impart yourself into individuals.
Yeah.
So that way your brand could be represented well.
Right.
But then when you talk about, okay, I'm in ministry, but now I'm in a marketplace.
Right.
And everybody that may come and work for me may not be of God.
Yeah.
So those are things that you have to remember.
Right.
But also just understanding the purpose and the reason, and then also saying, I done went through too much hell to throw in the towel.
Come on.
Right? Right?
Come on.
Yes.
That's right.
And that's how I maintained my position. And then I had all these kids, so I couldn't.
Right.
I said, no, I can't afford child care. I gotta be the child care provider.
My goodness, God kept you there.
He kept me. He kept me.
I love that. That is amazing. That's amazing. And so then my next question would be for you, what would you give as a tip to a businesswoman, right, or a businessman who finds themselves and their business is starting to grow? And so you talked a little bit about hiring team members.
Yes.
But what are some tips that you would give to someone as their business just continues to grow?
I would definitely, first and foremost, say walk in your authority. Because when I transitioned from the home to the actual facility, the building, I started doubting myself.
Wow.
Because I didn't have the educational background as most of the directors that was in that community. Not remembering that God called me. He doesn't call the qualified, but he qualifies the called.
Come on. That's good.
Right? So that's the number one thing. Don't try to downsize who you are. Walk in your authority. You belong there.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. You belong there.
You belong there.
Right? That's the number one thing.
Yeah.
And then also accountability. You have to hold people accountable.
Right. Right.
Because if not, people are going to be pulling on you from all over the place.
Yes.
But as a mom, a wife, right, a business owner, you have to have boundaries.
Yeah, boundaries.
Yes. Because otherwise you'll have people calling you 12 midnight, you on a date night with your husband, they're calling you, right? So you have to make sure that you hold people accountable.
Right.
And then also inspect what you expect.
Ooh, that's good.
Inspect what you expect. And that was wisdom that someone gave me, and it just stuck with me.
Right.
You have to inspect what you expect.
Right.
Yes.
That.
Yes.
I love that.
Yes.
Inspect what you expect.
Yes.
I love
yes.
that. I love that. Thank you so much, Prophetess Cynthia Williams-Bey, because this has been good.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And so my next question for you is shifting and answering the call of God as a prophetess. What was that journey like for you, saying yes to God in that way as well?
Well, what I would say is when it comes to being a prophet or being called in any aspect, you're called from your mother's womb.
Yeah.
So you're already in the process.
Mm-hmm.
And as I was sitting and I was waiting, God was just saying, you know, I was tried before I was titled.
Ooh, come on.
You tried before you was titled.
Yeah.
So it's not a hard transition because my life was already,
That's good.
you know, in preparation.
Right.
But you definitely you don't want to end up in the whale's mouth.
Right.
So
Right.
it is better to be obedience is better than sacrifice.
Yes,
and when you're running, it actually does make your journey a lot harder.
Right. Right.
And then also there's no safety being out of bounds with
good.
God.
Yeah.
Your safety, your provisions come by being in obedience and being in alignment with what God is telling you to do.
Yeah, I love that.
Yes.
Oh, that's so good. Isn't that rich? So rich.
Yes.
So if you would share with everyone a final piece of advice and then how people can connect with you after watching today.
Yes. Well, the final piece of advice I would like to give that many may not know is I'm also a widow. I lost my husband when I was 9 weeks pregnant last year, right? And one of the things that God had did for me, I feel like at that point I was really birthed because I had to continue to push forward even in that moment, right? And a lot of times life happens.
Yes.
So when life happens, you have to trust God.
Yes, come
Yes,
on.
so it was divine that she sung that song because that's been my last year. I've had to trust God even in that. That's the advice that I would like to give, that you have to trust God.
Yeah.
And anything that happens, anything that comes your way, you have to trust God.
Wow.
And just keep pushing forward.
Yeah.
And that's why they call me the Destiny Pusher.
Amen.
Yes.
Amen. So, Prophetess Cynthia Williams-Bey, thank you so much for being here.
Thank
and
you.
sharing your heart, sharing your all. We truly, truly appreciate you.
Yes, thank you.
And so now we're going to take a moment to see if there's a question in the audience. If anyone has one question for Prophetess Cynthia Williams-Bey. Dr. Dawn Lawrence. Wow. How do you reproduce your standards and your vision to the staff that work for you?
Wow. So one of the things I would say is that it's going to be consistent transition. A lot of the times in business, you think that you'll start with the same people, but that's not necessarily true. So one thing that God actually was dealing with me with when I was talking with my coach, he was saying, you see the heart of people, and you need to have skillful people. And that God gave me a revelation, and it brought me to the book of Nehemiah.
Come on.
right? And when you look at the book of Nehemiah, there was no friction when he was building a wall or anything like that. It came from the outside. And that's because we tend to get laborers, but we need to have skillful ones like Nehemiah had. Because when you have skillful laborers, there's no time for friction or anything because they're operating in their purpose and they understand why they're there. So that's what I would say, that as you're building your businesses and things like that, have skillful individuals.
Yes.
Skillful individuals.
That's so good.
Yes.
And the only thing that I would add to that, because that's amazing, is communicate.
Yes.
Communication is key, because if they don't understand your vision because you haven't communicated, they'll miss it.
Yes.
And they'll misrepresent it. So communicate that message.
Yes. Communicate,
Yes,
communicate.
yes.
Yes.
So thank you so much
Thank
again. Prophetess Cynthia Williams-Bey have been truly, truly amazing for us on today. So I am so excited. I know that you have gleaned so much and gained so much. And so we're going to take a moment with a nugget from the Fire Leadership Coach. And what I want to share with you all on this nugget is you have to understand that you are a leader with capacity. You have to understand that you are a leader with capacity. And the reality is you have not yet unlocked the fullness of that capacity. That's something that's always ever growing, always ever evolving. And so if you are willing to believe that what's in you is greater than what you've tapped into so far, you'll keep pressing in so that you can reach exactly what you need to reach, so that you can allow everything that's in you to be fulfilled, everything that's in you to be utilized. And that takes intentionality. And so you have to be willing to use the maximum amount. God, what is it that you also need me to do? How are you pulling me? How are you leading me? That's what I must do. With God, your capacity is actually limitless. And a lot of people say, well, sometimes we can give a perspective that's unrealistic. But the reality is, how can I put a limit on what I do not know? Only God does. Only God knows the fullness of your capacity. If you move like you have a limit, you will never reach it. But if you move like it's limitless because only God knows it, then all of a sudden you're going to do more than what you ever expected you could truly do. So don't allow someone else to limit you. All right? Leaders, we are full of capacity. So I am so excited because now you get to hear another amazing artist and another amazing psalmist, and that is the lovely So Shika. So Shika, come on down. I love her. She also has been a part of events that I have done and has sung beautifully. So what made you shift and transition into doing your very own music as well?
I would say, well, just kind of similar to what Ashley said. For me in 2020, God just kind of like told me, like, look, I've created you to be a multifunctional being. You are not, yes, you're a mother. Yes, you're a business, owner, leader, all of those great things, wife. But God was like, it's time for you to start using that gift that you sometimes want to put on the back burner. And I've been singing since I was 3. It's always been my passion. But because of life, it's like, I'll get to that when I get to it. Yeah. But God was like, that season of that, you get to, do what you want to do when you want to do it. You don't get to do that anymore. And so I fully embrace the fact that, hey, I'm called to do this. So I'm going to open my mouth and do it.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Let's do it. And so without any further ado, the lovely So Shika.
Y'all can just put your hands together like this. Every morning that I wake up, you put a smile on my face. So I rise just to
Satisfied.